with Val here in the free state of Socorro. We're joined with Melba Aguilar in the studio, and Val and I'm going to turn it over to Val now.
Well, thank you, Reese. We do have a special guest. Anytime we get teachers on board, we call them special because I think we both agree that all our teachers in Socorro are very special, and we want to thank you for that, Melba, first of all. So let's jump right into this. This being a special issue of Vocal with Val, we're in the middle of voting, so that's important that we bring you on early on. We're a week and a couple days into voting, so we know that you want to reach the voters. We want to get you in front of the voters as much as we can. But we're also in the middle of graduation and the school year ending, so you're busy with that.
Crazy.
I have a senior in high school. Of course, Gogo's last day was today too, so he's a junior, but he was scheduled to end school today. So things are real busy. So tell us a little bit about you, about your family and where you're from.
Sure. So I was born in Alaska, but I've grown up mostly in New Mexico. So I've been in Socorro since 2009, so I guess 13 years, 14 years. So I graduated from Grants High School. I grew up super, super poor, and I think that's important to know about me, that I had a childhood background that's not super dissimilar from the kids I serve now. So, a lot of my work and my advocacy has been around supporting kids who were like me. So I was a teen parent. So when I was 16, I graduated and had my son, and he had some medical difficulties. And so I very much, know what that road looks like. And I have the great privilege now that just started this year. We have a program here in Socorro called Grads. That's for, parenting and expecting students. Awesome program. Jeannie's the mom.
Yeah.
And I get to be the mentor for that this year, which is like a really beautiful full circle thing for me. So, I have 2 kids that are out of the womb, 1 in, about 30 weeks right now. So,
Congratulations for that.
Thanks.
And your kids, how old are they?
14 and 15. They just had birthdays, so I didn't think about it.
So a sophomore and a freshman?
Next year. This year, 8th grade and freshman.
Ah.
My youngest just went to Science Olympiad Nationals, which was very exciting, although it was remote, which was sad because they got to Nationals and they had to stay here, but it was still pretty cool for them.
He's always got next year.
Yeah, well, I mean, to have Cottonwood be at, the best in the state is pretty exciting. It was cool for them. So, I've got good kids. So I came to Socorro to go to New Mexico Tech. I wanted to do chemical engineering, and, while I was there, I did a bunch of stuff. I did biomedical research into mostly cancer drug and drug delivery. And then when I went on to start my master's, I was doing chemical catalysis stuff for biofuels. So trying to make biofuels profitable and viable. So I know a lot about alternative energy. And while I was doing my master's, I don't know, something just kind of clicked for me. I had kids in the schools here, and simultaneously I was working heavily with students at Tech. And there's this chasm. There's this chasm between Tech and town, and I really wanted to try and be a bridge there. So I had been doing a ton of outreach and stuff, running summer camps and stuff. And I thought maybe I should try teaching because I liked it so much, and I'm really, really glad I did. So it's not exactly what you usually do with a chemical engineering degree, but I love it. I mean, it's I think most people don't have the privilege of knowing exactly what they're doing every day, knowing exactly what the purpose of their work is, and teachers get that, which is great.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
No degree comes with exact instructions on what to do with it.
I tell the kids that all the time. You don't have, because they get panic about having to pick one thing. You don't have to pick one thing forever. You can be 20 things in your lifetime.
And my daughter, she's graduating high school, so she's like, well, I wanna be an artist. That went wrong for a little while. Then I want to be I want a culinary school. I want to cook like you, and then now she wants to go and pursue education.
Awesome.
So I'm like, well,
and she can do all of those things.
Yeah, and you could
one can do so many things.
Everything. Teach art and decorate cakes and teach in school the culinary arts, and everything's covered. So
I will say, if you're someone who, I'm always doing the teaching pitch, come teach, because we need good people so badly. But if you're someone who likes having a really eclectic work life and getting to do lots of different things, education's great for that. Because again, my formal background is in engineering, but I advise the newspaper, and I love getting to do that. And I advise our podcast. Whatever your passions are, there are kids who will really benefit from you sharing those. So, teaching's really cool for that.
And I know that I keep up with a lot of stuff you're doing. I hear about it. It's almost like we're passing in our advocacy for our kids, and hopefully soon we can get together. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, me and my wife were one of the ones that started the Kiwanis Club. So we want to get Kiwanis in tech, Kiwanis at the high school, and try to build on that relationship. So
Excellent.
that's something I'm sure I'm going to push
Absolutely.
for us to work on. So right now you're full-time teacher at the
Yep.
high school?
Yep, and I love it.
Cool.
More than full time.
And you were mentioning before we came on board that you were doing a version of chopped food competition at school. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I advise newspaper, the blue and white, and every year we just. I don't know how it started, but every year we do this chopped competition. So I give the kids baskets a day ahead of time. We have to kind of modify it because I don't have the whole kitchen spread right. So give them their basket a day ahead of time with the mystery ingredients, and they have to go use those and anything else they want to make some kind of delicious appetizer. And there's also a dessert round, and it's competitive, and there are judges, and it's very funny. Like the judges have a great time.
We're gonna have to get in and judge that, Reese. It sounds
Absolutely,
like
we
fun.
try to have
I'm
different
with you.
judges every year. So absolutely, it's very fun.
I think Val would make an excellent judge.
Oh, there's only one thing I like better than cooking, Reese, and you know what that is? Eating.
The result.
So then let's talk a little bit then on why become a representative, because most of the times you start at school board and you work your way up to the higher levels, but you jumped right into representative.
Well, okay. I guess two different things there. First, teachers can't run for school board, so I cannot do that as intermediate.
Okay,
It's a
makes
conflict of
sense.
interest. But as an engineer, we're trained in systems thinking, and because of my own background, I'm really deeply interested in what I can do for students that were like myself, the students that I work with every day. My kids are very much like we're the same kind of kids, man. So when you think about systems, teaching is hugely impactful, but it's really the wrong end of the problem to be like really changing kids' trajectories and to really be putting them on a path that's good for them, right? So as gratifying as my work is, there's only so much impact I can have, and it's very frustrating to watch sometimes because teachers, in the same way that like doctors do and police officers do, we see the whole community, we see everybody, and a lot of people kind of stick to their own little bubble, right? You go, I mean, this is especially true in cities, but to some degree, you kind of hang out with people like you, and teachers don't do that. Teachers see the whole community. We see everybody. And it's just, there's so much, love and potential and beauty here, but also so much hardship. And a lot of it's frustratingly preventable. And so I can't watch that happen every day and not want to do something more significant to make that better.
So then if you had, say, 3 things you want to accomplish as a representative, what would those 3 things be?
So these are really, there's 3 in my platform, but they're very, very broad and they're super intermingled. So it's all crime, education, and economy, right? And these are giant topics and they're really not separable. But I've got on my website, melbafornewmexico.com, I have a lot of, really specific priorities in there, but it's, I think crime is probably my biggest focus right now. Even though, I'm a teacher and it probably should be education, but one of the difficult things to watch is watching children get victimized without repercussion and without recourse. I think it's well-meaning, but I think in New Mexico we've really become so focused on the humanity of perpetrators that we've forgotten that their victims are real people and often vulnerable children. And we just don't do enough to protect them. We also don't do enough to really meaningfully change their trajectory, right? Most people want to be active participants in their community. They want to be, useful and good for their families. There's very few people who are fundamentally so malicious that they want to be, out there harming people.
Sure.
But we don't offer the kinds of supports that we need to change that. So it's a layered problem.
So let's see if we think the same here, because I was
Yeah.
when Governor Richardson won for office, I was given a job working with CYFD,
Yeah.
and I was recruiting foster families throughout the state. And I was going to churches using the One Church, One Child platform that was started in Chicago back in the 70s. And through that, I found out that the crime, the drugs, and the abuse all hold hands as it happens. And most of the time, the crime is trying to either gain access to money, food, or material stuff to sell to either support a family or to support an addiction.
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing?
I think
Is
a
that-
lot of it is for sure. I think the really devastating truth is that a lot of people who hurt their kids or let their kids be hurts still love their kids and really would like to be doing better for them and either don't know how or don't have the resources and time. So, yeah, I mean, I think child welfare is, again, thinking about systems, right? So when we allow children to, be systematically victimized, it tends to feed into the crime problem at large, right? So, and I want to emphasize here that I think CYFD workers really love kids and are doing their absolute best, but they're underpaid. Their caseloads are some of the highest in the country.
Oh, it's yeah.
It's a monstrously difficult job, and they burn out. So I think that's one of our most urgent problems,
Yeah.
is how to, ethically and equitably reform CYFD so that kids are getting the resources they need.
Well, if you take Socorro as an example, I was a court-appointed special advocate for Socorro for a while, and we had about 40 to 50 kids at any time in foster care in Socorro, and we had 5 foster families. So most of them were scattered in Carlsbad, in Silver City, all over the state. So that became a big issue, like when we had visitations. I used to watch visitations and monitor them. And these families would come with kids, 2-hour drive to visit dad, and then dad wouldn't show up. So here we go back. First of all, you're devastating the child because they were expecting it. But then just the impact on the cost of that.
Oh, of course,
Because
yeah.
you're paying them mileage. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, should I be recruiting CASAs, court-appointed special advocates, or should we really work on recruiting foster families? So there's always such a need, and so little filling that need. But those
Well,
numbers probably haven't gone down in the last 10 years.
They
In
have
fact,
not.
they're probably going
They're
up.
going up. And I think people love to hear silver bullet answers, and I'm just not super interested in providing them because they're not real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a really complex problem. But I'm so interested in this problem. I've been spending a lot of my default mode is if I'm not sure that I know all the pieces of something, I talk to as many people who would know as I possibly can. So I've been talking to tons of foster families. And I'll tell you, our foster families feel really, really overburdened and not supported. And again, I think that's, it's not deliberate. No one's never mind those foster families. It's just that they're so overburdened, so overworked, and they're not getting the resources and support they need. And so part of the reason we don't have enough foster families is they burn out too.
Yep.
So they'll stay in 5-6 years and they can't handle it anymore because it's so emotionally difficult. To bring kids into your home, to watch them struggle, and then watch them in many cases go back to homes where they're not quite ready.
Yeah, and
And
that's the
that's-
hard part. Is
That's
that
the hardest part.
it's not good, but
Yeah.
they-
And reunification is an important priority,
Yeah.
but it's hard to watch kids go back to reunify when they're not ready.
when it's not ready. And we see
Yeah.
so many terrible stories, but the
Oh,
good
New
thing about
Mexico.
that is that with all those terrible stories, there's so many more success stories. So
Absolutely.
we
Yeah.
we want to applaud that, and
Yeah,
CYFD is just a tough place to work
It
or
is. And I
volunteer,
have
and
an
you got
immense respect for those people.
to be ready
It's
to
hard
do
work.
that. So
But-
talk a little bit about education and what a representative could do as far as education goes. What do you see as a teacher? And I don't want to put you online or get you
Yeah.
in trouble with any administrations, but
I'm
as a
always cognizant of
representative,
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things we can do. The thing I like, the kind of catchphrasey thing here is that I think we need to give parents choice and a voice. So I am supportive of school choice, and I part of that is just knowing that there is so much diversity in terms of what kids need and what they would be best served by, and there's a lot of kids who are not well served by traditional education. So I absolutely think you should have the right to do better things for your kids if that's an option for you. I also think in rural areas that's often not a great, like that's not a complete solution. Just saying, okay, there's school choice and that's the end of my education plan is it's a little short-sighted because we can't possibly offer all of the modes that someone would want, right? I think we've got to so if you look at where our money is spent, we actually don't radically underspend neighboring states, even considering the rural factor, which is more expensive. We don't radically underspend, but we spend badly, really bad at it. Where we're putting the money sucks. And a lot of, I mean, it is. You know, we're not seeing it in the classroom. And even with the huge influx of cash that came into Mexico with COVID, we really are not seeing it in the classroom the way you'd expect. And that's not me calling out my district. That's statewide. That's just a thing that's happening. A lot of it's going into administration. I don't mean necessarily my administrators. See, you put that in my mind now, and I'm thinking about it. But
that's good.
Not just my administrators, but just administration in general, the management. Part of that is regulations that aren't effective. There's a lot of manpower required to keep up with those, and that's part of why administrative costs have risen so much. And part of that's just poor prioritization. We have these kind of vampire corporations that come in and take a lot of money out of districts with their nicely bundled product that we don't have to think about. That's a big problem. So there's layered problems here. I'm really supportive of the raises for teachers, not just because I personally like making more. That's nice, but I think it'll really enable us to attract and retain the best. Teacher quality is the number one controllable factor in classroom outcomes. So,
and I think you mentioned something very important there is retention.
Retention.
I think
Yeah.
you know on
how many people bounce out in 3 years?
at any level. I mean,
Yeah.
look at me with my son. Go. I think he's working on his 8th aide. You know, so
I've known several of them.
you know, and some of
Yeah.
the most important thing for a kid with autism is
Consistency. Routines, yes.
routine.
Yeah.
And every year it's like a brand new school. In fact, now it's every semester. You know, because I met this morning and yesterday with the administration, and special ed in Socorro is everybody left.
Yep.
Those wholesale changes.
Yep.
New changes coming. So here I am going on his 12th year, which I was hoping to be one of the most stable, and it's going to be very different. And you know what it is with my son though is that he likes going to school. He has a good time at school. I'm just still waiting for the education.
Yeah.
And I think that's the frustration a lot of parents see when there's not that retention and consistency. So we have a building block from the year before to build on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the budget. You know, that's been one of my battles at the legislature is what's happening like with special education funds, you know, because everything gets put into a big giant general fund. And then from there, you have to be a detective to find out where's my son's money going to, and how do they justify that as special ed funding? You know, me and the governor have had a lot of talks about that.
I am delighted you mentioned this because I've been advocating for literally years. We need public-facing budgets. We need districts to produce public-facing budgets so that you are not playing detective to figure out where the heck the money's going. Every district goes through an audit every year. That's just to check for fraud, which is good. It should happen. But it's not actually checking, you know, efficacy or whether things are going to where they're supposed to or anything like that. That's not the auditor's job. And really, it's no one's job. And it's, you know, it cannot possibly be PED's role. It's too big. It's too much for them to do. It could be the public's role. And it could be the public's role and parents' role if we made public-facing budgets. And I mean, like APS produced a public-facing budget. But because they had an enormous amount of pressure and because their school board wants that, I don't think you should just be able to pick. I think you should be able to look and see where the money's going. Even Cottonwood produces a public-facing budget. You could see how much they spent on recorders this year, if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
It's right there, you know.
And I think you could also see why things are so much different in the Socorro Consolidated School versus Cottonwood in the same community and teaching basically the same kids because there is no picking and choosing at Cottonwood like a lot of people want to think. It
This is a
doesn't work that way.
contentious, it's a
And
contentious issue.
and we talked about it. I've watched it. I watched my kids,
Yeah.
be stuck in the lottery for 11, 12 years, which means it's working.
Yeah.
No matter how I was over there banging on the doors and stuff, it works the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, and my both of my sons attended Cottonwood. My youngest is about to graduate from Cottonwood, and we just lucked in. But that experience I think has kind of informed what I think about the claims that Cottonwood just gets to pick the good kids, because first of all, what do you mean the good kids? What do you mean the good families? That's kind of terrible.
Yeah, I remember.
But also they have a waiting list that's hundreds of kids long.
Yeah.
So, the same kids that you are saying are better because their parents are motivated enough to sign them up are in your district. So I don't think that's a real great argument. There are things that are noticeably different there, though, that I think I really wish we would emulate more actively. Before the phrase community school existed, Cottonwood was a community school. So, there are some things that are missing, right? They don't have some of the wraparound services that we would love to see at a community school, but the community's there. It's part of their charter. They have to have 75% come and volunteer every year. And meanwhile, we don't really encourage parents to spend a lot of time on campus in the district. But you have to at Cottonwood.
Oh, and-
You're required to.
And when I go, it's like, okay, he's walking down the hall. Be careful. He's turning right over there, and it shouldn't have to be like that, because it's we're not going to go there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we really should not. And I don't think anyone's consciously cultivating this, but I do think the schools can feel hostile to parents, and even if they're not told to leave, they can start feeling like they're not wanted there. And I know that's true at the high school. I've had parents talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, you used to volunteer all the time. How come you don't come around? Well, it was too hard. I didn't really feel comfortable. And doing more to cultivate those relationships so that parents want to be involved. We have all these great resources in town that we just don't have enough active collaboration with, and that's part of it. So anyways, that my kids going there is part of why I became so passionately in favor of especially public charters, but school choice in general, because you should have options, and charters like that really serve as like centers for innovation. They're little pressure cookers, and some of them are really ineffective. Like, to be totally clear, I know that some of them are really ineffective, and some of them are profit driven, and there are problems. But charters are also some of the best schools we have in the state, and in New Mexico they are required to fill on a lottery basis, so they're not picking and choosing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So then, education. We talked a little bit about.
Yeah,
You went to tech.
I did.
So
I love tech.
tech is so important in many reasons in New Mexico. What I would like to see, if you do become a representative, how do we get tech more involved in boosting the local economy? Because we can't have 2 or 3 jobs at a time. How do we get something that we can hire 200 or 300 people to do spaceport or something like that? That seems to be, we see it going up all over. We got Netflix, we got different things happening. Then spaceport's over there, and it's like, what happens here, and how does tech help with that?
Yeah. So I guess a couple of answers there. I keep saying my I think one of our top economic priorities should be, because we actually do have these like really top end technical resources in New Mexico, right? We've got Sandia, we've got Los Alamos, we've got tech, we've got like numerous others. And one of the things that happens is when someone develops something that could be profitable and interesting and benefit the community, they'll start looking into doing it here, and they'll wind up doing it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Even when they start here, sometimes they leave. We're talking about like Solero. They were here, they left. Some of that's taxation, some of that's regulation, some of that's things that are a lot harder to address, like they don't feel like they can get the labor they need, or they don't feel like they have the infrastructure support. And all of those have to be addressed for that to really move anywhere. But I think if we could capture that talent, because a lot of these people do want to stay here. They love New Mexico, they want to invest. But if you're 22 or whatever, it's hard to decide to make the decision to sacrifice and stay. It just is. And whatever we can do to capture those people and their talents and the things they want to develop, That's what we need.
Yeah, without making it a sacrifice. It should
Exactly.
be like, hey, I'm in Socorro. Wow, good for me.
You're going to have to offer more entertainment. I'm sorry to say that, but one of the guys I worked at NRA was going up to Albuquerque to go dancing. Okay.
I got a new karaoke machine that I'm going to break out this weekend.
All right, let's get back to the interview here. But you
No.
got to have a way to relax
It's
at the end of the day.
Totally valid. I'm not running for mayor, but one of the things that I'm when I used to like write for Pay Dirt with tech, one of the things I would always ask them is about what they wanted to do for the economy in Socorro, and if their answer was not about in some way capturing the income stream from tech, I was not interested in hearing what they had to say because tech has this like $25 million payroll, and they're not spending it here. So what can we do to make sure more of that is captured here? That's the most impactful thing that we could do here is try to capture more of that here. So I think one of the it's a total token item, right? But one of the commitments I've made in my campaign is to only spending money here in New Mexico for sure, and as much as I can within the district, because I think it matters. I think you've got to be trying to, invest in your own community as much as possible. So, yeah.
And I think your public-facing budget will do that.
Yeah,
It'll help
I think it
with
will.
that.
I think it will. Yeah.
So we talked about different things here. Now I want to bring up a little bit of a controversy.
Oh, no.
Is renewable energy.
Sure.
Okay, because it seems that we've talked to people at New Mexico Tech. They're very concerned about what's happening with the Rio Grande River, what's going to happen with
We are predicted to go dry this summer.
New Mexico chili within the next 10 or 20 years. Are we even going to have chili?
We've got all kinds of farmers selling their stuff right now.
So how do we address some of the things going on with climate and with renewable energy? How do you feel on that?
So I have kind of two different tiers of answer here. There's what I think needs to happen in general and what I think New Mexico needs to do right now. And those are, unfortunately, fairly different answers. So some of my background is actually in renewable energy. I did biofuel stuff. And one of the things I'd love people to know is that New Mexico is one of the best places in the country to develop actually sustainable biofuels. Not that terrible corn bioethanol, which has put a smear on the whole face of biofuels, but like actually renewable, carbon negative, energy positive, sustainable biofuels. Because we have so much sun and we have non-arable land, it would be perfect for this. So I'd love to see, my answer really here is...
So before you...
Yeah.
Where is that happening now in New Mexico? Is there any
So we've
evidence
had
of that?
okay. So there was a company down in Las Cruces called Sapphire Energy, and there was a big oil flux basically that knocked most of the biofuel companies out in 1 year, which is what happens when you're venture capital funded and you have to compete with oil. So yeah, they all got knocked out. But there's also there's a group at Sandia or is it Los Alamos, one of the two. And there's another group at NMSU that are all doing, actually these groups specifically are doing algae biofuel because it's maybe one of the most interesting for New Mexico. It can be grown on non-potable water and on non-arable lands in big racetracks. I think the prediction is like $3.50 a gallon, which the last I checked was a lot, but isn't now. So, things change. So here's where my answer gets maybe less satisfying for you. New Mexico is really poor, and we are the third biggest oil producer in the country. I think our oil production, A, is absolutely essential to our economy right now, and B, is absolutely essential for national security. And so I'm not currently super interested in us actually trying to push oil down because I'm not sure the poorest state in the country needs to be the ones leading on that. But broadly, I think that diversifying energy is the future. I think it has to happen. And I would love to see New Mexico, I'm not willing to crush oil. I am willing to invest in diversifying if it benefits the New Mexican economy and the Mexican worker. And I think it can. We're a great place for these techs. Zanetti talks about this a ton. That's his big thing is he's New Mexico is the best place for nuclear. We're the best place for, he talks about how we're rich in non-potable water, which I gotta say, that's a weird one. But, if we can use it productively, he's not wrong. We've got these resources. We should be using them to invest. It's a balance, right? And it's about making sure that you're thinking about the whole system and leading in the right way, and not in a way that devastates New Mexicans.
Well,
I think is really critical.
and we talked about education doesn't thrive without the oil and gas industry right now, and much of the infrastructure in New Mexico doesn't thrive without that. It's just a matter of how much foresight do we need to have to know that eventually something has to happen, or else
Yeah.
is there
The
a,
thing is, like, we can't do it alone. It
well,
cannot
yeah,
possibly
exactly.
be just us. Like,
Exactly.
and so it's like, while I love the idea of us leading on something because we're last in everything, I feel like the one that's going to economically cripple us is a tough one to try and prioritize. And I think we've been a little bit over ambitious, a little over aggressive with it, and it has actually harmed us. And so I want us to be real careful about that. But yeah.
So should we have a plant in Socorro County that makes electrical cars? And the interesting thing in that, and I've been doing a little bit of research, is how much oil and gas is needed to produce that car that's electric.
So I will say, I think that right now focusing on electric cars is the wrong end of the problem. I don't have a problem with electric cars, but I think it's the wrong end of the problem. Partially because, like, just like you're saying, they're heavier than standard cars. They are more resource intensive right now, and it takes a lot of miles for them to even break even from an energy perspective and a carbon perspective. And that only happens if your grid is clean. So just building the cars isn't going to do it. And so I was a little frustrated to see, maybe 3 weeks ago, we decided that we're going to follow whatever California decides that we're going to do with electric cars. We're going to follow suits. So we're supposed to increase to like 7% EV sales by next year, which is like tripling it. Or no, sorry, I'm sorry. That's misstating. Not next year, 2030, I think. But that's like tripling it. And so there's really only two ways to do that, right? We can either make gas cars more expensive, or we can subsidize EVs. And again, neither of those really makes a lot of sense to me if the power they're pulling is not renewable. So just,
So
I'm not opposed to them, but
so then the focus on renewables is turning the lights and the heating and cooling on at the schools, rather than the bus. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with these kinds of things, but I don't think they fundamentally address the root. It's I think a great frustration for anyone who's really familiar with the energy economy. There's this, and including environmentalists who are familiar with it, right? There's this tendency to focus on consumer level solutions, things that you can do personally that will improve your footprints, that don't tend to actually be very impactful, and in some cases don't even affect your footprint. Things like the straw bans, like. First of all, the garbage patch is almost entirely fishing gear, so not doing a ton there, and it just makes drinks less accessible for a lot of people. So these kinds of, it's a way of kind of deflecting, like responsibility away from where it should be, and making people feel very responsible. And I think it has really polarized a lot of people against even talking about this too, because it tends to be it's your problem. You need to fix it. And that doesn't make sense.
we got the paper straws, so we're doing our part.
Well, then,
Okay.
then you can buy carbon credits and things like that, which
Exactly.
which aren't actually doing anything.
So we touched a little bit about water. Now, water is essential in Socorro County.
Boy, are we feeling it right now.
Farming and ranching, we're seeing farmers selling off, doing other things with their land.
Families who have had farms for generations, yeah.
How do we save the farmer? How do we save the middle Rio Grande Valley?
We have to renegotiate our treaties with the other states. And I don't know how the heck that's going to happen. But it has to happen, right? Like, we don't have a lot of choice there. The things that Eddie keeps bringing up, and again, I don't want to... I haven't run the numbers here. I don't know how realistic this is. He feels like it's pretty realistic. But we have all this non-potable water, and there are areas, Israel comes to mind, where they've basically put in these desalination plants. And if you have the desalination plants, suddenly water's not a problem anymore. The problem with the desalination plants is they're very energy intensive. So how do you deal with the energy intensive problem when your grid can't support that? Well, then you have to put in nuclear plants. So that's a vision for how we could fix this. It's not a trivial problem. This is not a silver bullet problem. It's not something that we have as much control over as we'd like. One of them is just figuring out how to divert less water to other states. But part of that might also be figuring out how to use the water we have more efficiently. We still use the same flood irrigation that we've been using for 500 years. And there are parts of the country, like California, where they've said, well, that's using too much water, and we're going to stop doing that. You can put in actual lined irrigation channels. You can use, more advanced irrigation systems. They're expensive, but if water is a really high priority here and protecting agriculture is a really high priority here, then maybe you want to help farmers invest in that stuff.
One of the things I read is that the way we irrigate lends to so much evaporation.
Exactly.
We lose so much just to the heat.
And the ground.
Yeah.
Like a ton. Yeah.
And
It's inefficient.
One of the things I think in California they were doing is they would just create shade for irrigation ponds or tanks and stuff, and that would save such a percentage of water. Just simple stuff like that that could be done probably in big areas like Santa Casha Dam or
Well,
different
especially
places.
areas where we're talking about like reservoirs, right? Those should be covered for sure. I think that makes total sense. That's not even an especially expensive solution. So
Well, we've jumped all over the place. I think we've given you a chance to let the people of Socorro and our listeners hear a little bit about who Melba is. Is there anything you want to add to why you're pursuing this and want to stomp those halls of the roundhouse?
I guess first I want to emphasize when to vote because we have very low voter turnout for midterm elections, man. So June 7th is the primary. Early voting's open. Go down to the courthouse whenever you're ready. This is going to be a really hotly contested race after the primaries. And I mean, it's going to be tight. So I think pretty much no matter who makes it, there's 4 of us, right? So no matter who makes it through, it's going to be a really tight race. So I do want people to take that seriously and be engaged and,
And
it's not, there's this kind of perception, I think, that either, however it is the way it's going to be and I have no control, which is not true, or that it's already a done deal. And I've heard both people say that obviously the Republican's going to take it, and I heard people say obviously the Democrat's going to take it. We're that kind of county. That's absolutely not true. This is going to be a really tight race. That's how our demographics look.
Yep,
So,
and just to talk a little bit about that is,
Yeah.
I've been involved in politics since 1982, and I've seen numbers change and fluctuate in Socorro County. But the biggest difference that I've seen over the years is the number of people that don't participate in a primary election because they've neglected to choose a party in which
sure.
to do so. So we have 28, 29% of the voting public in Socorro County is a declined estate, and
well,
in many cases, those are the same people that don't even vote in the general.
So I was independent most of my life, and I really feel that position. I mean, the reality is people don't feel served by their representatives. And if you don't feel like your vote's going anywhere, even when the guy you wanted got in, why do you keep participating? It's you've really got to put people in place who actually want to serve people. I think that matters a whole lot.
Yeah.
I will also say that the Secretary of State clarified this year. She didn't change the rule, I guess she clarified. But if you're clearly declined to state, you can register on day of. Not if you can't change parties day of, but you can, if you're declined to state, register day of if you would like to be able to vote. That's a thing. So.
Melba, can I ask you explain one thing to our listeners? You use the term system thinking, and some of us know what system thinking is, and some of us don't. Could you explain that a little bit to our listeners so they understand when you say system thinking?
Yeah.
Because that's part of why you don't believe in a silver bullet.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
you realize how everything's connected.
Yeah, so I mean, when we're talking about a system, we're not just talking about what's right in front of us. So to use kind of the factory example here, at the very end of my process, I've got some product coming out, and it's just not what I can't sell it, right? It's not good. And so what I don't want to do is just start repairing those, and that's what we very frequently do. I'm just gonna repaint this part at the end of the line. Don't worry why it's going wrong. Just repaint this part. What you want to be doing is going up the line and figuring out where something is broken that is causing that to happen. And the more complex your system is, the more places that things are broken. And so this is why I don't like really simplistic rhetoric. I don't like the silver bullet thing because it's just not true. And I think we need to be talking about real solutions. I think voters deserve that. So it's never going to be simple.
Right. So as a representative, having
Yeah.
that thinking, our social and cultural systems, institutions, which
Yeah.
are quite complex, it's not as easy as just looking at the output and repainting the
It is
person
not.
that comes out the bottom and
It
says,
is
"Oh,
not.
look, we need to just make them another color and we're fine."
Exactly.
It's figuring out why are our children poor and why are they hungry, and looking at the big system, like you said, of everything
Exactly.
included, which in this conversation has been quite a few things, which
Yeah.
is good. Energy, water, education. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I think one good thing about our little talk today with Melba Aguilar is that even if you're not successful in your campaign,
Yeah.
I think we're going to have you back on air. We're going to talk
I'd love to,
about
yeah.
some of the things you're doing with the kids,
Yeah.
some of the things we can collaborate with. Maybe we can bring them in and let them play with Reese's buttons on the board and teach them how to do some broadcasting. I mean, that's something that my wife wants to do at New Mexico Tech. She's the director at Macy Center, and they're getting new equipment and doing new things. And her sister was a product of Mr. Fleming's CS program.
Which I hear about all the time.
So
Yeah.
she wants to reintroduce that. And hopefully we can do that through New Mexico Tech, a collaboration. And me and Reese can get in there and show
Sure.
them how to do things wrong as far as broadcasting.
Hey now,
That's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're just here and we wanna have a conversation, and that's what we're doing. And our guest today has been Melba Aguilar, who's a teacher here, most important, and also vying to be our state representative for District
38.
38, brand new district. Looking forward to have somebody from
All the
Socorro.
way down to Hatch, which
Yep.
is huge.
Yep.
It's a
And you're-
long district.
Choice and a voice. Does that get that?
Yep, choice and a voice.
Choice and a voice, and being able to change the trajectory,
Yes.
the path that people are on, and you can do that at the right point to get to the right destination.
so.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for
And
having me
thank you for coming in. I got to get back to Macy Center. We're decorating for Elena's party on Saturday. So if you guys aren't doing
Congrats.
nothing
Excited.
Saturday, 6
Yeah.
o'clock, come in, have some barbecue. I'll probably have a few refreshments and grab the mic and serenade the crowd and run them all
I've got to
out
be
by the
there
end
for
of
that.
So everybody's welcome. Saturday, 6 o'clock at Macy Center. Say congratulations to Elena Briella Naya, who did 7 years online schooling.
That's
One of the best things, and I say this a lot, is that she got to go to Paris
That's
as
awesome.
a school trip. So that was pretty awesome. And I think if anything else, I haven't even been to Paris. So,
Same. Yeah.
and congratulations once again to all the seniors, everybody that's celebrating this week. Tomorrow night is graduation here in Socorro.
Can I brag about our seniors for a second?
Absolutely, please do. We
So-
can't brag enough about
So
it.
there was a huge press release this year because last year's graduation rate went up 12%. We're gonna knock that out of the park this year. The graduation rate is, I can't say exactly, but very high. And we have last night I found out we have 93 of our seniors who are going on to college and trade schools, and that's quadrupled usual.
That's so awesome.
Including 11 who are going to tech, which is. Sorry, it's just wonderful. So I'm really, really proud of these guys. You guys are awesome.
And that's kudos to the students. That's kudos to the teachers as well.
They're
So
good kids.
so keep it up, kids, and go out there and change the world.
Amen, Val.
Anything else, Reese?
No, I want to thank Melba for coming in the
Yeah,
studio.
thank you.
Really appreciate it. And it'd be interesting to talk energy and some of those things with you. I
Yes.
really would like to dive into that a little bit
For sure.
more. And school budgets. I mean, I think you've got a really good idea about public-facing budgets. We don't do enough here. I like the term vampire corporations. That was perfect. But really enjoyed meeting you tonight. And thank you. And thank you to our listeners on our radio program listening in and on our Facebook Live. You've been listening to Melba Aguilar. She's a teacher at Socorro High School here. And from what I've seen, some of her Facebook posts, her students just absolutely love her. And she's got the system thinking is real important. Like it says, when we look at the range of District 38 down to Las Cruces up here, the middle Rio Grande Valley, the water issues, we've got a lot of things to solve. The old ways of thinking aren't going to solve the problem. We really got to change how we deal with things because we've really gotten to that point. So thank you for coming in.
Awesome.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And I think with that, we're going to say goodnight.
Good night.
All right, good night, folks. You've been listening to Rio Grande Valley Radio in the heart of New Mexico.
Sweet.